Hey everyone, we're going to try this again. It's a Monday night, so not typical live stream nights, but we had some technical difficulties last week, so we're going to have Matt on tonight instead. So, yeah, we will get to it in a minute. Usually, what I say for repeat watchers, if you're watching this after the live stream, is usually the first 2 to 5 minutes is us figuring out and getting the live stream up and running. So, you feel free to skip ahead and watch the interview then. Angel, thank you for joining. Let's see here. I guess we'll just give you a quick rundown of what we're up to in the meantime while other people get in here. Here's Matt. And Sean Cav, thanks for joining. All right, here. The same thing gonna happen. Hey, there we go.
It worked.
All right. What do you know?
Let me turn you up a little bit. Yeah. Did you
Thank you for jumping.
Figure out what was going on? Anything like obvious? Or no.
Nope.
Just luck of the draw.
Yes, sometimes it happens that way. So glad you're here, and thank you for taking the time to do this on a Monday. We really appreciate it.
Today's my Saturday.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Well,
this is wonderful.
I also hate to make you work on your Saturday, but I thank you very much for being on here. And we'll let some people jump in, and I'll read a little spiel off the top, and then we'll get started here. All right. Let's see. Okay, so I guess just real quick. All right, I'll jump in here. So hello and welcome to the Bellwether Ritual live stream, where we discuss music, the local Lehigh Valley PA scene, bands, social media, and more. Today is Monday, June 12th. My name is Mike. I'm the vocalist and guitarist of Bellwether Ritual. I hope you had a great week. And our next show is coming up August 12th at Carnival of Chaos 3 in Schnecksville. So we're looking forward to that. We actually just got challenged to a cornhole tournament to promote it. So looking forward to that. And we'll be releasing a new single soon. We're going to be mixing currently. And yeah, we also have a playlist and a YouTube channel playlist on all the streaming services of all the guests on the live stream and also Lehigh Valley local bands. And then YouTube, we release the Wednesday night live streams on weekly. So yes, tonight our guest is Matt Mulchaney of Shards Recording Studio in Bethlehem, PA. He has been playing in and recording bands for many years. I think started in 2017, Shards, or was it further back than that?
I had this space since like
2009.
Yeah. Like I always was like part-time there. I did social work for a little while, and I part-time did recording and taught drums too, but 2015 is when I finally just took the dive and went full-time, because it seemed like enough people were hitting me up and the scene was really bustling, and I thought, well, hopefully I'll have some support, and yeah, obviously it worked out. I have lots of support around here.
Very cool. Yes, he had helped. So he launched Shards Recording Studio in Bethlehem, PA. He also helped establish Studio 11, which is a recording and rehearsal studio in the Bethlehem Area Public Library, which is almost unheard of, which is awesome. We'll talk about that some more, as well as Tape Swap Radio's Shards sessions on WDIY, and recently released his own sample pack called Drum Crush on BandLab. We'll talk about all that and more. Matt, welcome to the stream. How you doing?
No, I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Once again, thank you. Sorry about the technical. I don't know what was going on. Blame it on the wildfires, whatever you want to say. But
sure.
Yeah, glad to have you here. Anything you would like to plug right off the top? I know we kind of touched on your sample pack that you released a few months ago. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
I mean, I'd love to plug the fact that like Live in the Garden, Live in the Greenway,
Yes.
We're coinciding right now, and thanks to the mayor, Willie, he got me a sizable amount of money to get a PA system for both the Rose Garden that will be stored at the library for the rest of the year, and then a PA system for Southside Arts District, and then I also got something to permanently be installed at the Ice House, all with the ability to record live. So I just want to plug to any bands watching, tell your friends that like 2-3 different different places in Bethlehem have the ability to record your set live if you hook up like an iPad, or you just got to get drivers for the mixing board. But we're loaded with gear. Like, the area is loaded with enough stuff that everybody has the ability to make content regardless of your economic background. You can just, get involved, talk to people who either book shows through any of the city's events and stuff like that, and you could be playing stages that have a nice PA now. You don't have to struggle like we did when we were kids to sing to a crate guitar amp or something like that. Like, I'd like to see the next generation like not have to struggle with that and just focus on their art, and to create a community that's more functional.
Amen.
That's my big plug.
Yep. So all this amazing stuff coming out. Flint Westwood, thank you for joining. Ryan, Flintstagram, thank you for joining. Ryan says hello, Booger.
What up, Ryan?
Angel says that's awesome. Thank you guys for jumping in. If you have questions for Matt at any time, you can drop them down in the comments and we'll get to them.
I'll probably keep as we go along too, because I really want people to know, like, we just put a whole bunch of money and effort, and it's just like, it's there for the public. I mean, it's the idea is that it's public use and that it's creating equity in our community, basically.
Yep.
So
we'll plug on that. Yep. Just feel free to plug away as we go through. We usually take like breaks every 15 minutes. If you just want to repeat the stuff for everyone who's just jumping on, we can do that too. Yeah. All right. So let's start from the beginning. I know some of these answers, but for everyone else who may not know, I'd like to start from the beginning. So are you originally from the area? Did you move in? How'd you get here?
Yeah, I am from here. I grew up like by the Westgate Mall. Hawk Music was like my go-to for guitar strings, and hopefully finding a gem of an amp hidden in there, that kind of thing. I was here until I was 20, and then I lived in Los Angeles and Orange County for about 8 years, and then moved back in like early 2018-ish. But I am from here, yeah.
Very cool. And then was there like a thing or a person or, I don't know, a song or something that really got you into music to begin with?
It's hard. Like, I know my dad would like put headphones on me and then just play me stuff. And I know one of the things he played was, and I still love this album, but the song "Steppin' Out" by Joe Jackson. That song, that's a great album. I just remember hearing those chords, and I was like literally like 3 years old or something like that, and hearing these kind of like more complex chords and stuff you might hear on the radio, and I just remember it feeling like it was like physically ripping through my brain, because it was like nothing I heard before. It wasn't like your kind of typical 4-chord stuff. And like Steely Dan was something he played for me when I was way too young to actually appreciate it.
Really?
But those are actually kind of weirdly formative things, for sure.
So high bar right off the start there.
Yeah. Right? But then there's like, then there's your teen years where like music takes on a different meaning, So like, something that felt like defiant, like a Nirvana or Green Day song, just smacks you in the face, and you understand that it's more than just music, because it was simpler than anything I've listened to, but it was like more powerful, And then you start to learn about what's connected to that, like in a community way.
Yes. All great things, all things that are on my list here. So if you want to go in any of those directions, just let me know. But I think that's something we debate all the time as a band, is like, how do you balance the simplicity and directness of something like a Nirvana with something that's a little bit more like heady, say like Steely Dan or something like that, and trying to strike that balance is tough sometimes, especially with a group of people when you're trying to be to be creative.
It's cool you're conscious of it. It's a cool thing to think about, trying to insert like beautiful, interesting things in the midst of something that's more just in your face and brute force.
Yeah. So it's just weird. There's always that saying of like the less you play, the more people will potentially like it, and there's always that kind of, I don't know if that drives decision making necessarily, because we all have to be happy with it internally before it ever gets out. But it is something like the audience is always something to think about. At least I think so. I don't know.
There's different schools of thought with that. Like, some people say like, make it for just yourself. Like no one's going to hear it. Yeah. And I've gone down both roads. Like I've made stuff that I'm like, this is entirely for me. And then like I listen to it later and I'm like, that was for me right in that moment. And no one will get that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not communicating with anybody with
Right.
that song. I'm
Yeah.
entirely just indulging. And that's like, it's cool if that's what you want out of it,
Hmm.
you know? If you don't want that out of it and you want to tell a story to somebody, then you have to take a different, more accessible route, I guess.
Yeah, we always think of it, or we always talk about it like it is a language. It's just another language. So if you're trying to communicate to somebody else in another language, you need to keep it simple and be direct, and to have them get the point you're trying to make across. So yeah, very
Yeah,
cool.
definitely.
Okay, can you maybe talk a little bit about, I know you kind of touched on a little bit, but like starting the studio, and I know you said you were like kind of part-time at first. Were you just a gear collector for like an ongoing amount of time and you just needed a
No.
place for it? Yeah, go
No.
ahead.
No, I had like, when I was 19, actually, I started a recording studio in Allentown,
Hmm.
and I taught drums out of it. Like this woman who I was in a cover band with, she and I kind of started a thing that she called the Groove Factory, and I
Hmm.
had a little studio based on ADATs
Nice.
and mixing console
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah. Ooh. Every 4 months, I was driving to Broomall to go get them fixed and calibrated again.
Yeah.
But so I started a recording studio then, and I had like literally since I was like 8 or 9 started figuring out like programming synthesizers and just like I was just a super dork, and I got into 4 tracks when I was that young and recording stuff. So I always had like a knack for it and everything, and had a studio when I was 19. And then upon moving to Los Angeles, I did a bunch of stuff recording wise out there, and then really focused on the band. So when I got back here, my skills were pretty like sharpened for recording.
Hmm.
Um, I had a ton of practice recording like my own band, and then sometimes like doing sessions with people. So
Hmm.
it was kind of just a matter of, I had a space. I wanted to get more people in to just like be the go-to person to whoever needed it. And, I started doing it part-time. I actually don't know why I didn't just dive in and do it full-time, except for that I loved my social work job.
Hmm.
It was like the most rewarding job I've ever had. I just took so naturally to it, and there's so many great clients there and everything. I was working with people with mental illness,
Hmm.
and like I was basically mentoring, and it was like I was kind of the boots on the ground for the therapists. So we would all go get a treatment plan and come up with stuff to do and what we were working on and goals and this and that. So I kind of fell into that for a while, but I was always ready to go. Like I was mastering stuff on the job there on my laptop, and like
Hmm.
uh, Shards was kind of always there for me. I was making albums the whole time I was part time. It just I don't know. I think I just love that job too much to completely ever commit to doing it full
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Um, and I shared it with a ton of bands, and I always like to be accommodating. So I kind of wanted to make sure bands got their practice nights and stuff like that. But that started to phase out, and then as that phased out, I kind of just let it completely take over.
Yeah, and you touched on, we actually, mental health has come up more than one live stream already, so it's great to bring it back to the forefront and just kind of get it out there and have people try to become more comfortable about talking about it, because it is such an issue for so many people, and I feel like it's one of those silent, you suffer in silence a lot. So anytime
Yeah.
we can bring that kind of stuff up is always great. Airspace Band, thank you for joining. If you have questions for Matt, you can drop
Yeah.
them in the comments at any point. Yeah. Okay, so um, why? Just really quickly, what drew you to LA?
There was like um, this kind of resurgence of music that was kind of like the band I was in at the time.
Hmm.
Um, Weezer kind of they released Pinkerton, and then it kind of like went below the
Hmm.
radar and was panned.
Hmm.
And in the meantime, a bunch of people got into them, and
Hmm.
like everyone's opinion started to change about that album. My friend did an actual thesis on it. It was a pretty interesting case study. But basically, by the time '99 rolled around, everyone's opinion on that album and Weezer changed, and there was
Hmm.
like a kind of gurgling underground where it wasn't just like punk bands at the punk shows and DIY shows. They were kind of like these geek rocky bands and like this power poppy fuzzy indie kind of thing starting to happen more so. And the band I was in at the time really kind of fit into that a little bit. And there's this great website called mp3.com, which was kind of like part Spotify, part BandLab. It's like a kind of like MySpace too. it was a platform where you got paid really well actually for streams and stuff, and you would chart. You would also chart locally and stuff like that. So people were using that to discover bands, and like labels started using it. So this label actually found my band and asked us to be on a Weezer tribute that actually did.
Oh,
The
wow.
tribute was, they got some pretty big bands on it and stuff too.
Yeah.
And we already were kind of talking lightly about like moving somewhere else or moving to California. We found this band who was doing a real similar thing to us and everything, and then the labels invited us directly to come play like a string of shows, including with like Rilo Kiley for some of them and stuff like that. It's a pretty like, you know, happened in bands. And so we were like, yeah, we'll do you one better and we'll move there. So like me and my friend Joe and Derek like rented a U-Haul or a Ryder truck and drove a car out there and moved there. It just seemed like a cool scene for the kind of stuff we were doing at the time. There were a ton of bands excited about that kind of style of music, but they're all different. Like some were more punky, like Nerf Herder and stuff like that. And there was this one called Ozma that was really cool and like really power poppy, but had kind of like an ELO-ish melodic sensibility and that kind of thing. So it just seemed like the right scene for us, and we kind of never fit in the scene here, at least at the time. Our band always, I don't know if you remember us back then, we always did something like a little different than what everyone wanted you to be doing. Like we weren't like the power pop punk band or something like that. We were sometimes kind of like a little heavier, and like we kind of always just kind of did our own thing. And finally we were like, oh, it seems like people really dig that, and we have a label asking us to come play. So we took the dive. It looked like a cool scene. And I ended up there for 8 years, so
yeah, that's awesome.
I think it was a solid move.
Yeah, was that in the Penth?
Yeah.
Oh,
and then we named ourselves Wheelie that last like a year and a half we were here, and that's what we got there.
Awesome. Yeah.
And then
yeah, we have some old connections going way back, and I think was Derek on bass?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if I know him as well. I think you know, through mutual friends and things like that. But yeah. Ryan Flynn Instagram says GFOX and felt right. Thank you for joining.
What's up, guys?
Okay. Yeah. Questions for Matt, you can just drop them in the comments below and we'll get to that. Okay. So then from there, was there something that brought you back? Was it like a family, friends kind of thing, or?
Yeah, like it started as like a family thing. I wanted to help out my parents while they were going through a thing, and while I was back, I kind of got a feel for what was happening locally, and I got really psyched about it. I was like, oh, there's a lot of like raw material here. Like people are doing like a lot of cool stuff. There's a lot of underground stuff. People are having like secret art shows and stuff like that down the street. I found the studio space, and it was like as soon as I started doing these little things like that, stuff would happen. I was like, oh, I have a show space. 20 people would be emailing me like, let's do a show, let's do a show, let's do a show. So I knew like, okay, this is the kind of place I want to be. I felt that undercurrent of the underground here, which is why I still try so hard to like, you know, facilitate it and help it grow.
Well, you're succeeding, that's for sure. And yeah, even you were talking to like off the top, like if we only had access to all the things that you have been able to bring into the scene when we were young, I can only imagine. So yeah, thank you for all that. Let's see here. Ryan Flinstagram says, was it Wheelie or is it, am I saying it right, GFOX first?
Gertie Fox. Oh, Gertie Fox. He's being he's just acronymizing.
Yeah.
It was Wheelie first. They were called Nepenthe when we were here, when we were in like high school and a little out of there, and then Gertie Fox came after Wheelie.
Cool.
Yeah. Wheelie was the more fuzzy, grungy pop band. Gertie Fox was the more like indie rocky kind of thing.
All right, cool. Do you purposefully like set out like when you start a band? Is it like you catching a vibe and chemistry? I'm like, okay, this is kind of what we all like. Let's go in this direction. Or are you just creating music and seeing what happens and then dividing that kind of stuff up later?
It kind of depends. Like the Wheelie was like, I was in that band for so long that we kind of just lived and breathed that band. Like, and any journey we were on together, and I mean, at least from my perspective, I always wanted to make lots of space for everybody to do what they wanted or to try stuff. I definitely, we we all kind of brought our own influences to it. We kind of just took it wherever. I can't say I ever go into a band with like, I want to start this kind of band. It usually is like, I have this kind of song, and I think this would be the right people to play it.
Yeah.
Something like that. That kind of more so.
Very cool. Kurt of Rasputin's Dick out of Ohio, thank you for joining. He is building his own amp currently. I think it was a Marshall clone. So yeah, if you have any gear questions, drop them down in there. And Daryl Fogel, thank you for joining. Any questions for Matt, you can drop them on down in the comments section. Cool. Yeah, so that was always a big one for me, because there's sometimes, like even during the pandemic too, I kind of was like, all right, well, what can I do more by myself? And kind of just wanted to work without the only instrument I wanted to use was a computer, and just try to do something with that just to kind of keep things going.
Mm-hmm.
And then once the pandemic kind of left off, it was, I think like a lot of people, it was like, all right, well, now we all kind of bought guitars or did things over the pandemic, since we were all just sitting around doing nothing basically. Now we want to go out and share this with people. And you hit on something too. I moved down to Philadelphia for 7 years, obviously not across the country, but similarly, I came back for family to help work through some family issues.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I came back, I was like, oh, wow, this is a lot different than I left it. And there's a lot more opportunity for bands and musicians, and the community, especially I feel like now even more so since the pandemic has really kind of had this resurgence. I know there used to be, I was away for it, but Second Avenue, I think, had a decent scene. I want to say in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
I just missed it completely. And but I always hear about it. And then it kind of died down a little bit from what I'm understanding. And then I feel like now it's really kind of coming back.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there was a venue on Second Ave.
Right.
You could, like, if you lived on West Side, you could walk to.
Yeah.
I played there with Wheelie. I played with like another kind of grungy band called Said Sadly back then. And then I went randomly and saw like an incredible jazz quartet there. Cool. Like they had all kinds of music there. It was cool. It was kind of more eclectic than like the Funhouse necessarily. Not that they're not eclectic, but you would never see jazz at the Funhouse. I guess. And you never see like it wasn't quite the same vibe. Are you talking about Second Ave, the venue?
Yeah. I completely missed it because I was down there doing band stuff down there. But it was just something that was like, I hear the echoes of, and when I came back, and then it was a shame that happened. But all the other stuff that's popped up since has been fantastic.
Yeah, there's always something going underground, which is great. And like kind of what I'm trying to do is, help bridge that into the above ground, basically,
Yes. And I feel like you do a really good job of that. How do you connect with people and then stay connected with people? Because I feel like that's an art all to itself as well.
Oh, I honestly I don't know. I just kind of make myself available in any way. You know what I mean? Like I try and just be there for people in all forms, really, from recording to someone to talk to and someone to run ideas by. Like if someone needs some advising in some way, I try and lend that whenever I can. And I think, I just kind of build trust with people, and they'll want you to come back and help them out. So.
So true. Let me just read off Jeff Instagrams. Thank you for joining. Tom, thank you for joining. Kinsey King, thank you for joining. I have to say, if I butcher your handles, I apologize in advance. So if you know anyone and you want to shout them out, feel free. Luke Noy, thank you for joining. And Danny Fluck, thank you for joining. If you have questions for Matt, you can drop them in the comments. Do you want to plug anything real quick again, just so people know what's going on? I know you have Live in the Garden and the Greenway going. We could talk about that a little bit too. I want to hit on Studio 11. There's just a lot here. So and if we don't get to all, it's fine too.
I just want to keep on putting it out there that basically between the Ice House and Rose Garden / library, there are like almost 20,000 watts worth of PA systems that are like basically for the public's use in some form, and it's a free recording studio. So like, go lose your minds. Like it's here for public use. The PA system that's in use at the Rose Garden right now is going to be stored at the library. the rest of the year. So basically July 2nd through the end of April, there's going to be a PA system that you can, we're working on how to do this, but like you can basically check it out like a book. You just have to work with somebody in some form. We'll figure that out, but it's there. So
it's awesome. I actually went on over Christmas break, I was switching jobs and I just took 2 weeks off. And one of the things I wanted to do is get down to Studio 11 and just check it out, and ended up recording some vocals, which is just,
nice.
Yeah, it's just kind of mind-boggling. Like, I'm going to go to a library so that I can be loud and record vocals. It was just kind of bizarre, but very cool. So you want to talk about that a little bit, like how Studio 11 came about, what your role was?
Yeah. Josh, the director, he's a great guy. He's
so on the live stream, you can check him out in our previous one.
Yeah. So I mean, you maybe touched on his punk upbringings and stuff like that. Maybe like he played Scarlets, which was like a classic kind of dingy underground punk club here, which where a lot of people my age cut their teeth.
Same.
He and I were talking. I don't really remember who brought it up first. But we were talking about like having some kind of like better PA that they can always use there. And then like I know I joked about like One World PA system or something like that. And then he said something about like he heard about like a one-button recording studio that somebody put in a library in like Seattle or something like that. And like it kind of got my gears going, and it doesn't take much for me to start hoarding more gear. But I started, and anytime someone has something extra that I can kind of think of as part of a system, I can think like strategically, like what could that do if there was X, Y, or Z there, or if this group of gear was there. So I started kind of like amassing some stuff that was kind of like, this is in case the library has a recording studio at some point. And then we talked about doing it proper, but someone on the board at the library, like having me design it and everything, or at least get some gear picked out, the board preferred to go through somebody who is at like, I think they were there, something with like radio and the new LVR and like Channel 39. And they bought the first round of stuff, but it just sat in boxes. So that person just left then after they bought some stuff with some grant money. And I kind of came in, took over, sold some of the stuff to raise money for stuff that was a little more appropriate to what the studio was going for. And then I did kind of like, I just put the word out there like, hey, this is a really cool thing. This is like a dream of mine to be able to put something that's public use like this somewhere. And a ton of people started responding with, I have a drum set, I have a snare drum, I have a guitar. I'll donate, like Sustain Chapel donated fixing like 2 or 3 guitars.
Dude, Nick's awesome.
For free. Nick set them up and everything for free just to, to be a part of everything. People were giving me so much stuff. Like I would get texts from Josh like, someone just dropped off like a Ludwig snare drum on the front desk. I'm like, oh yeah, that's this person. Just tell them to put it downstairs or put it somewhere. So once I got all that stuff together, I kind of laid out what I had gotten and what the other person bought, and kind of came up with like a nice simplified kind of, I mean, it's not that simple, it's like a Behringer X32, but a simplified kind of version of that. And just kind of started putting stuff where it needed to be. April, my girlfriend, and I, we would go there every Monday and Tuesday for a good like 2 months, and like we loaded, they were about to throw away or recycle a bunch of books. We like loaded, I think it's like 6 shelves per side with books for like a little bit of extra diffusion and scattering and stuff like that to absorb some bullshit. We had like the full bass trap complement and stuff like that, so I hung bass traps all over the place, and April decorated really nicely. We got some Christmas lights and stuff, and then christened it. And then he said it's been booked like 320 days a year, something like that, for the most part, since we let it go out there to the public.
Yes, plan ahead. I was like, I had booked a couple days in a row for like, maybe 2 or so hours at a shop, but it was filling up quick. So yeah, but super easy process. Just submit on the website, walk in, say you're there, and you can get recording, which is amazing. And you had a stand-up bass down there too.
Yeah.
We're talking to Josh about that too. I guess I missed the boat a little bit. Were you in band?
I did orchestra and chorus and stuff like that.
I should have did orchestra. I was in like the marching band But really what I should have done was played some kind of stringed instrument in the orchestra now that I look back, but never really had the opportunity to sit and play with the stand-up bass all these years. So it was nice to just kind of jump on there and
It's a cool
give that a whirl
instrument.
too. Yeah, it is. It's like it's a challenge. You got to like dig this stuff out of it. You know, it's not just, I
Yep.
don't know, some like a guitar where it's super low action and you can just touch it and
Look,
all that kind of
you
stuff.
literally have to do like a fish hook and dig
Yeah,
dig
yeah.
the notes out.
Get in there
Yeah.
and pull it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you, so Studio 11, that comes, where does that come in the sequence of things? Or is that something that you launched first and then the Live in the Garden and Greenway come after that? How does that
Yeah,
work?
that was back in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
the studio. And then Live in the Garden and Greenway came from really just the mayor just kind of had me come in and like to chit chat about stuff with him and his director of mayoral initiatives, Angie. And I was like, cool, sweet. Here's some like they wanted to do something with I they wanted to do something in the Rose Garden and kind of make it like liven it up in some way
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. And then I was like, I've been dying to do something with Tape Swap Radio there and actually like throw a show. And I was like, I also want to do something in the Greenway. I was like, we should put a stage in the Greenway or get a stage and just do something all the way down then. That was like a year and a half ago now. And from all that, we got the chamber involved, and then Southside Arts District got involved, and that kind of turned into what it did now.
I can remember as a kid, the band show at the Rose Garden was always kind of like, oh, I want to play there one day. And the band I was in as a kid, we were like an instrumental three-piece, whatever. We played a set there, and I was like, oh man, this is like a dream come true kind of thing. So it's
Yeah,
interesting that it's kind of come back around. Can you talk about Tape Swap and Tape Swap Radio and that background a little bit too?
yeah, that was that was founded by Seamus and I in like 2012,
Mm-hmm.
2013. Um, Seamus came to me with that idea. Really, he had experience at WXPN.
Mm-hmm.
Then he was also a DJ at WDIY, but he also did stuff in Philly, and he wanted to do kind of like a live video series every now and then, and like just like the thing with the mayor, like when I was like, oh wait, you want to do something like that requires lots of work and like makes it a platform for everybody. Like, let's do 2 a month, and we're gonna do some on a rooftop, and let's
Oh
do
yeah,
shows too.
yeah,
Let's have a zine.
yeah.
We basically, once the two of us got together, we just started bouncing all these ideas back and forth. But we basically started that as just similar thing to when I did the zine when I first moved back here. I kind of like wanted to give the scene a reason to want to exist. I wanted to give you a mirror to hold up to the whole area and like see what's going on and feel motivated to do something because you might be seen, you might get written about, you might be able to be on this, video show or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. When you have stuff like this around, it creates like a sense of place. It creates a sense of community. You feel like you put like a punctuation on the place you're making your art, and it can motivate people to want to do something. Keeps bands wanting to make more music if they know they could potentially like do a live in studio and have some great video of it, and good audio and everything.
Yes.
That's the main motivation. It's gone through a lot of changes over the years too. We've done regular shows at the Fun House, believe it or not, for a little while. That just became too much to handle. We've had like teams of people doing stuff for us, and then just the two of us again. We did a zine, an actual physical
Mm-hmm.
zine. So it's kind of just evolved over the years. But above all, it's a video series, and we just want to use any resource we have to kind of like create that platform, whether it's sponsoring shows at the Ice House or doing a video in session.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Papa Bear 123456. Thank you for joining.
Right, that's Leo. He does a lot of work for the Ice House too. He organizes a lot of
Awesome.
the Ice House Punk and DIY shows. That's on Instagram, Ice House Punk and DIY.
Oh yeah.
That's who you want to go to play a show there for sure.
All
And
right.
Leo's a great guy.
Well, thank you for joining, Leo. And thank you for all your hard work in that regard. I saw Nick actually with Pale Fang play there, and they had an awesome turnout. It was an awesome show. I'm trying to think who else was on that one. But yeah, great sound. The stage was cool. Like had the lights, the whole nine. So I was really impressed. Okay, let's get a little nerdy. You say you started collecting gear at some point. Was this something that like you've been recording forever?
Hmm.
Is this something that just kind of like as things pass, there's I feel like there's always this gear shuffle that happens between people who are into this kind of thing, but is it something that just kind of accumulates over time? Do you get to a point where you're like, all right, I really need this or that to kind of take it to the next level? How does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's all of the above, really. I mean, part of why I was able to get a start was because my dad, uh, I had like gotten in trouble and actually got arrested when I was like 16.
So did
I
I.
was always a good boy until then. I had a little hiccup,
Yeah.
and I think it was just because of where things were at in my head at the time. Whatever. I He actually got me uh, another condenser microphone, and like
Mm.
kind of just left me with that and was like, "You're not going anywhere, but I could go in the basement." And I just raged and like kept recording and
Yep.
figuring out how to make my drums sound like Weezer or Goldfinger or Green Day or some shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my dad always he gigged on the side too, and he
Oh,
had
okay.
different professions.
Very cool.
He had different professions while he did that, but he like learned drums so he could play drums on his own demos basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so he did gigs and had a job and stuff. He would always bring a piece of gear and then like take it away, and then like some other instrument would show up. So I was always like getting to screw around with like a bass for like 3 weeks and then be gone. And then I'd have a
Mm-hmm.
synthesizer for a really long time, and then like that would be gone. And then like a little weird Moog keyboard would show up or something like
Oh,
that.
cool.
So
Yeah.
in my teens, there's like weird things would show up and stuff like that. He worked for a sound and light company for a little bit and actually got me a tiny little mixing console and an 8-track cassette recorder. And that's when I started realizing like what I could do with
Yeah.
multitracks. I was like, oh, that's how you make guitars sound huge and wide. That's
Mm-hmm.
doubling your guitar, like that
Mm-hmm.
kind of stuff. Um, from then, once I got those little experiences, it's all been how can I, yeah, like you said, how can I push it further? How can I get this closer to what I'm hearing in my head?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's stuff that you just acquire because someone lends you something and you like it, and then you end up buying it, or
Mm-hmm.
like my dad's had like friends who are just like selling off crazy cool shit for like $50. Like the one guitar, I had this guitar cab that was like it was a matching Music Man. No, it was a Music Man head, like the HD 150 head, the 6L6s. And I never had a guitar head around, so I never got to like rely on pedals and then like crank a loud ass amp like
Yeah, me
that.
neither.
So I gave my dad $50 and I had that. And then I got paid for recording in a matching cab for that when I was like 19
Oh, very
by
cool.
this band Nooner, who was around back then. So they paid me in that. And then I was like, okay, I'm running out of channels. I keep on hearing this 8K thing that I don't like. We're getting nerdy, right? I just want to
No,
check
cool.
in.
This is
Okay.
definitely, yeah, for sure.
So when I was 19, I was like, or 18, I was like, I keep on taking 8K out of everything. Is it this mixer? And then I tested like the preamps on my mixer. I was like, oh shit, they're like adding this like thing around there. And then I started going on message boards, and that was it. Like
Yeah.
I got like deep with gear after that, and I got an eBay account and a credit card, and stuff got weird. But I will say, you got to work with what you have.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have a ton of money. I actually, when I was 17 through 20, my job was a gigging drummer. Like, I'd
Oh,
come
wow.
home from school and like 5 p.m. get picked up in a van and go to the Poconos and play like
That's awesome.
Caesar's Resorts and like play weird carnivals and shit like that. It's a funny ass cover band, and I didn't like make a ton of money doing it, so I had that in the studio, and I just had to like, okay, every move you made had to like really mean something and actually
Yeah.
be a really practical move for the most part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the second ADAT I got, it was like I'm running out of tracks, and if I want to record people who want to do a full mic'd drum kit and
Mm-hmm.
everything, and not just kind of sum stuff down to 2 tracks,
Mm-hmm.
I know what that sounds like now. You don't have control later. I gotta get more tracks.
Yeah.
Gotta get the bigger board.
I'll always need more. Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess you can kind of get stuck in that one too, and chasing your own tail with that too a bit. Angel says Bren was the one of the other performers at the Ice House that night. Yes,
Oh,
very
cool.
cool. Yeah.
Cool. Brent's great.
Yeah. And okay, so I do definitely want to get nerdy. Why? What why'd you get started on drums? I know you play a lot of different things, but what was it about drums that were like, all right, this is what I'm gonna kind of get started on?
Maybe I'm lazy, but it clicked.
Mm-hmm.
It clicked really well. I started when I was like 2 or 3 years old, actually. My dad like cut the metal on stands and on the seat so I could actually sit at a little drum set and play.
Oh, cool.
And I think something happens with your neural pathways when you like start doing that young, to where like you come back to it and it's like natural feeling.
Yeah.
Because I played at a young age for a little bit and kind of messed around, and then drum set went away, like I said, and then there was like a keyboard and a Leslie around. I didn't touch the drums again until I was like 8 or 9 years old, but it just kind of clicked because I had done it when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been doing other musical things, so that kind of kept that developing and everything. But I don't know. I think I just it clicked with me, and I realized, oh, this is easy again. So I just hopped back on it, and then I realized, like, I was with these guys who no one could play the intro to "Smells Like Teen Spirit," right? I was like, no, it actually goes like this, and then they like their drummer never came back, and I was just all-time drummer for everybody. And it got passed around between conglomerations of people jamming, so I kind of just became like a utility player on drums then.
Yeah. Do you think any of that gets passed? Like, your dad was a musician. Do you think any of that gets passed down to you, like, say, genetically or anything like that too? I always wondered about that.
Yeah, I don't know for a fact if that does, but I wouldn't doubt it. I'm sure that there's some kind of proclivity to have an ear for a certain thing, or have an ear for like, rhythm or something like that, or brain dominance, something like that. Yeah, I just don't know.
Gets written in there, it feels like sometimes. All right, a bunch of people just joined, so I just wanted to shout them out really quickly. MichaelSean.io, thank you for joining. Lehigh Valley Arts Podcast, thank you for joining. We appreciate that. Alan I. Parker, thank you for joining. And Insidious Rays, thank you for joining. Very cool.
Oh, shoot. Hey, Rays.
Yeah. If you have any questions for Matt, you can always drop them in the comments, and we can get to those. All right. So, speaking of drum sets, like, do you have a go-to? I know it's probably gonna be all over the place, but what is your preference when you're trying to record a kit?
For myself, if I'm recording like a drum set.
That's a really great question. Yeah, let's start with you, and then we'll apply it to other bands.
I mean, it depends on the track, but like I said, I got to work with what I got. I don't have like a crazy drum collection. I have some cool stuff, but I have this Yamaha recording custom from like 1984 or 85. It's known as like one of the most sampled kits in history. Like Alesis made their drum machine with that kit, basically. It's 10, 12, 16, 22-inch kick. You could put a paper bag on it and it would record great. So I always start with that kit. I give people a chance to try it if they want to try. Most people will entertain bringing their kit, and I'm like, just try mine. You might like it. I can make whatever work, but it's just so versatile, and that's why I use it for everything. I've recorded like metal with it. I've played on metal tracks, like even a couple weeks ago I did. You can use it for a metal track. You can just tune it up a little bit, deaden it a little bit more. You can use it for something like jazzy, like covers a ton of ground. That's like one of my favorite pieces of gear I own, honestly, is that kit. I feel so at home on it. It always sounds great. It always just like sings back at me when I hit the toms and stuff too. Yeah. It's just a sound I'm used to at this point, and a lot of people love it, and it records great. That's awesome. Yeah, that's why I love that kit for myself. Really depends on the situation, like people bring some weird ass kits to the studio, and I'm all about it. I love this one dude brought this snare. He was like, yeah, the person who recorded us in Florida, it was like a live session. And he was just like, he like hated my snare and replaced it. And I was like, it sounds so fucked up and weird. Like it absolutely makes you sound like you're a band though. Like why would you want to get rid of that? Like you have that's like a piece of your preference that gets imbued into the music because you like that special sound, that then becomes part of your special sound,
Yeah. So like from a producer, I don't know, do you consider yourself, have you produced things too, or do you consider yourself more like recording engineer, or depends on the band kind of thing?
It depends on the situation. Like the band lab thing I did I did one two in Los Angeles when I was just out there, and the one I drummed during the day, but I entirely just produced the other person, and it was someone who I really liked too, so it was super weird. Like it's this band called Granddaddy, and this guy Jason Lytle, and like I've listened to them since I was like 20,
Oh, that's
and like
awesome.
I'm like a fanboy for this band, and I got to play with the guy, and like had to be like hit the talk back like, hey Jason, that was great. I think we're good on that vibe. Let's like circle back and maybe try something a little more like this. I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing now? I've had to do that though. Yes, so I produce too. I kind of do whatever needs to happen
Sure.
there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So when you are producing and you put that hat on, like, are you just trying to like get a good idea of what the band or performer's vibe is, and then
Absolutely.
try to find ways to best bring that out? Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's my job is to just help them be their best selves and be their truest selves. That's
Yeah.
really all I want to do. I don't want to get in the way of that. The only things I do are to help that. Like, I don't just throw someone my drum kit because I think it's a better kit or something like that. You know, I'm just there to like facilitate them, make the most space possible within reason for their art to be made.
Yeah. Chaos Incarnate, thank you for joining. Let's see here. Okay, what kind of advice do you have for bands who may have never gone in the studio before, or maybe have but are looking for taking that next step?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, go in and meet the person, because really, like, even if they're not producing you per se and kind of get more in your head, you have to vibe with the person that you're there with.
Yeah.
You know, I think that like is kind of first and foremost. Really, I mean, gear is whatever. You got enough tracks, you can do whatever with it. But like, if you don't feel like you have someone working with you who gets you, like, it's going to take a lot longer than you want, and it's probably not going to be as fun.
I feel like the role of a producer sometimes can be like therapist a little bit too, or like sometimes I feel like when I've been in creative groups or bands in the past, sometimes either people are too forward with their ideas or they're too afraid to actually share what they really feel. Do you have any like techniques or anything, or do you get into that at all when you're in the studio, or is that something that's
I'm not telling you my secrets though.
you don't have to.
No, I'm joking. No, honestly, I don't have any Jedi shit that I use on anybody. I just am really honest and really open with communication and make space for everybody's idea, no matter what. And it's not frequent, but it's barely ever happened. But if anyone is kind of stepping on anybody, I make sure that the person who maybe is being a little pushed to the side, I make sure they're heard.
Yeah.
And I just try and get everyone on the same page. Just try and keep everyone hearing each other. That's the biggest thing, communication.
Yeah, it's so important. And I feel like, especially when you're performing, like you're kind of locked into your part and you want to make sure that you're not making any mistakes, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes you can be hyper focused and then you're not even paying attention to what was going on with the rest of the band. And that can, cause, whatever. Just to your point, like maybe stepping on some toes here or there.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to, work with someone who's outside of the band, just to have that kind of like in current case, like a fifth member. So you can't like have a tie if you're voting on or things or like that, or you just have someone who's not like in it and they can bring that outside perspective. It's so important because I think sometimes you get too in the weeds and don't see the whole picture.
Absolutely. I love being that person, and sometimes I will float between that fifth member and then back into I'm just kind of letting this happen. You know what I mean? I learned like a lot about that over one weekend working with this guy Dave Newton. He was in a band called the Mighty Lemon Drops. It's actually funny enough, it was at the studio directly next door to the studio I worked at in LA last time I was out there. And I remember I went there to be kind of like, I was like guitar tech, extra ears, kind of like whatever. They threw me like a little money to hang out, basically. And the band was called Henry Clay People. And I was like, this guy's getting paid what a day? He's not doing anything. He's just getting record. And then I realized, like, he is commenting on things at the perfect time with just enough feedback to keep them on track and to not, like, step on toes and not kind of push anybody in any kind of weird direction. He's, you know, just kind of lifting everybody up. And it was like, if it was somebody else that could have felt weird and things could have like gotten off track. You never know how things could go sideways, you know? And I kind of took something from that. I was like, oh, wow, it's not all about like micromanaging stuff. Like you got to take a step back and bird's eye view it every now and then. And, you know, you got to, you know, be like water, like Bruce Lee says, you know, and like,
love it.
use great. You have to, you know, is it like a well-timed punch is better than a strong punch? You know what I mean? Like, not to make martial arts references,
No,
they both got to,
yeah,
but they both make sense. Like, it makes so much more sense to well-time a comment and feedback than to just kind of tell people, no, it's not working. And I've worked in situations where someone's recording their part and they're like 30 seconds in, someone's screaming like, stop. I'm like, Jesus, no. This is the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
Wrong spot for me.
Communication's been a really important thing for me. Like I had some things happen maybe like 4 or 5 years ago now, but it really brought that to the forefront. And I was like, man, I got to go talk to somebody and figure out how I can get better at communicating, because it's such an integral part of life that if you're not good at it, you can just struggle and sometimes not even know why. I just thought that was great.
Oh, we're all flying blind most of the time.
You got to remember
we really know what we're thinking or why.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The more little bit of insight we can have into what we're doing. Like I feel like I am the pilot of a fighter jet, just with no eyes and a bunch of wild ideas.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And we're all kind of doing that. You definitely. I mean, I'll be real. Like I started seeing therapists like a year and change ago, and like absolutely changed my life for the better. Like having someone that wasn't like a family member or like my girlfriend or my sister to kind of go over some thoughts without judgment. Yeah. Well, one, it reinforced like you said, like I can be kind of a therapist to people sometimes in the studio. It reinforced like you kind of can be that, but with a lot more boundaries. But it reinforced how important that is. I was like making space for people and letting them just let themselves be free and let their stuff out with just honest feedback. Completely changed my life. I mean, I just made much more careful and self-care minded decisions, and I don't mean that in like a selfish way. I just think it like I'm better at caring for other people because I'm better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of the local stuff started happening as this stuff was getting better too, and there was a lot of pressure. Like this stuff wasn't like there's a lot of work and a lot of pressure that I'm like buying the right gear, getting the right quotes and getting good deals, and then Hawk Music closed, and I had to everything I was buying from them, and like whatever. There's a lot of pressure, and who knows how I would have handled it if I didn't have someone who was like a go-to with my fears and everything like that. So don't be scared of therapy, everybody.
Yeah, seriously.
We
talked about that a little bit at the top, and I mentioned it. Mental health has come up a couple times on live stream, but really, it is a life-changing thing because you do get that feedback. And I specifically went for to learn how to communicate better, but you don't have to go for anything particular. It's good just to have an ear like that. Really quickly, Under the Clothesline, thank you for joining, and Food Truck Band, thank you for joining, and Kyle57, thank you for joining. We only have a few minutes left. We can just go on and on, so maybe we'll have to do this again sometime if you're down for it. Thank you. How about, so I always find, like, I bought it, like, my first guitar in 12 years a couple weeks ago, and it was like, oh, awesome. It's like plays different, feels different, looks different, the whole nine. And I feel like sometimes, or we'll like trade guitars, or I'll try something new, and then like a song will come out of that. How often do you find like gear inspiring songwriting?
It happens a lot, and that's the kind of stuff that I try to only keep around the studio. That's like the litmus test for equipment too. I should have gotten into that before, but a lot of the stuff I keep, it was either like, obviously lots of it I've bought because it was a purchase that needed to be made, and from a practical point of view. Sure. But my Kelly that I have, that I write the bulk of the stuff with, my girlfriend split the band with her, blah blah. Guitar, trying a bunch, it was the one that wrote songs with me. You know what I mean? Yes. That happens all the time. I try and keep an array of stuff around that's not just like I have a PRS because it's the best guitar ever or anything like that. I keep shit around that like it's inspiring,
Yes.
that you can't get anywhere else. Like I have I have a Longhorn 12 string that Eric Santana built from scratch,
Oh wow,
and it is
cool.
bonkers weird, and it is so fucking awesome. Like it is such a cool guitar. But yeah, all the time. That's like everything I have at the studio is something that has passed that test of, can this instrument inspire me in some way?
Yeah,
Absolutely. I love
that's
those.
interesting. Do you have things like that, like bands come in and pick up and like gravitate towards too? I mean, must, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I was recording this Smooth Retina Glow band, and their
Oh
guitar
yeah.
player, Colin, he's super ripper. Holy shit. And that guy would bring in like it almost seemed like a comedy act. Like he would bring in like 2 or 3 guitars, and he'd go out and he'd come in with like 2 or 3 more, and then he'd come in with like another 2, maybe 3 guitars. I was like, holy shit, we actually ran out of space in Shards. He had so many guitars everywhere. It was fucking insane.
Yeah.
He still found like an old Epiphone that I have from like it's like a '73 Wilshire.
Cool.
He freaked out. He thought it was so cool. And there's this guy, Shane Reimer. He had this band, Shane and Them Spicy Boys.
Mm-hmm.
I have this harmony guitar that my dad and I had this friend who I used to gig with, who was like a family friend, and he passed away in 2013, and his wife gave me some of his belongings and stuff. And the one thing was like a kind of fucked up harmony, and I took a piece of ebony that my friend Emily gave me, and she showed me how to make a bridge. She's just like, they look like this. So I just sanded ebony into a bridge and then stuffed it on the guitar. It's like a total piece of crap where like the output just goes right to the pickup. The tone knob isn't hooked up. I made the bridge out of ebony. Like to intonate it, you tap it and move it around. But like really good guitar players would be like, oh no, I don't care. I'm fucking using this guitar. This thing is crazy. This is awesome. You know, I love having stuff like that around for people. And like some of my favorite spots to record have lots of stuff like that. Like that seems to be like the kind of thing people keep around at studios like Minor Street or King Size and whatever.
Yeah, very cool. All right, I have one last one, and then we'll plug everything one more time, and then we'll wrap it up. So one thing I noticed from a couple of your recordings and mixings, I'm thinking Wipe specifically, is like how you kind of blend super fuzzy guitars with bass in a way that is like makes it almost like one instrument and like super powerful. Do you have like any tips or techniques for doing that?
Listen to Weezer, the first 2 albums.
Oh yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
No, I have a place that I love kick, snare, and bass and guitar to all live together. That I feel like propels stuff in a way that sounds natural and feels like you're like in the middle of. You're at the perfect spot at like a hall show where it's not all echoic and shitty sounding, and the band is just pummeling you. And I usually shoot for that kind of, at least for heavier bands or bands who are heavy who want to sound kind of more live and in the room. I shoot to kind of get that balance right. Tips and tricks for that? I mean, just use your ears. Like I just, every move I make, I'm not just kind of throwing stuff up. Like I'm usually like testing it, moving it, kind of using sense memory to think like, oh, like how did this work last time I did it? How is this going to play off of how that sounds right now? And just like respond to that and respond to the people too. Like get a feel for if they're digging it and if they're responding to it, they feel like it feels like it's still, if it's them, you know what I mean? Because ultimately it's an extension of them.
Yeah, it's it feels like a lot of bass prominence too, in obviously a very good way, but because sometimes I feel like it's just guitars and then everything kind of just behind the guitars. Fuck if you can hear it or not. Yeah, very cool.
Well, I like the drums.
All right, well,
to be loud. I'm sure you noticed that.
What's that?
I like drums being really fucking loud. I'm sure you noticed that.
So yeah, we're at about an hour. So thank you so much for being here. Oh, Josh just jumped in. Thanks for jumping in there, Josh.
Hey, Josh.
As we wrap up. So yeah, I just want to plug everything one more time. What you want people to know is out there and available. And then yeah, I would love to do this another time. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, the rundown is Josh sent me a kiss. That's great. There's a free recording studio at our library. There is a really nice PA system now at the Ice House. There's a PA system that's going to be stored at the library for public use in some form that's also used at the Rose Garden for those shows. I have a recording studio. I love meeting people and talking about stuff like this. Let's hang out.
There you
Pretty
go.
much it.
Matt Mulchaney, Shards Recording Studio, and so much more. Basically, like entire community scene guy. So thank you so much for
Trying.
all your hard work.
Thank you for
And
doing this too. This is cool. This is a very selfless thing. I love that you. This is the kind of thing I'm all about. Like I love that you're using your band to kind of just keep people meeting each other, learning about each other. This is amazing.
that's the goal. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. And Tim Lynan, thank you for joining. We're just wrapping up. We
Shit,
will
Tim.
take
We're out.
take all your questions next time.
He
Once
plays
again,
in blah blah.
oh, cool. All right. We didn't
Yeah.
even touch on that. So we'll have to do that next time. But
Let's
once again,
do
thank
it
you so
again.
much for your time, Matt. And thank you everyone for jumping in. And we really appreciate it. And we will see you. Actually, we'll see you on Wednesday because it's a doubleheader week. So yeah, thank you so much and have a good night.
Thanks. Bye.